When silence breaks, the revolutionary power of voice. Have you ever felt that moment when something inside you shifts? That instant when you realize the weight you've been carrying isn't actually yours to bear. I had that revelation while interviewing Kiki-khani Lauderdale, a remarkable writer whose journey from silence to powerful self expression has ignited a revolution of truth telling that is changing lives across the globe. Her four-part series, You Can't Hear Hummingbirds, isn't just literature. It's a lifeline for thousands trapped in circumstances they believed were inescapable. Today, I want to share what I learned from this extraordinary woman about the revolutionary act of breaking silence and how finding your voice can transform not just your own life, but create ripples that extend far beyond what you might imagine. We live in a world that often rewards our silence, a world that tells us, particularly those from marginalized communities, that our voices are too loud, too emotional, too much. But what I discovered through my conversation with Kiki Kani is that our silence doesn't protect us, it isolates us. It becomes the very prison we're trying to escape. When Kiki Kani first sat across from me, the weight of her story hung in the air between us. For years, she told me, I believed that keeping quiet would keep me safe. What I didn't realize was that my silence was actually keeping my pain alive. This realization that silence preserves our wounds rather than healing them struck me with the force of revelation. What makes her work so powerful isn't just the raw honesty of her narrative, but the deliberate choice to transform personal pain into collective healing. This is the essence of what I want to explore with you today. How breaking silence can become an act of revolution, of healing, and ultimately of profound transformation. I've spent years documenting the journeys of Black women professionals through my podcast, Pink Parachute Diaries. And if there's one consistent thread I've found, it's that our stories matter, not just for ourselves, but for everyone who comes after us. The title of my podcast wasn't chosen lightly. It speaks to a reality many of us have witnessed: talented Black women receiving pink slips while mediocre men float away on golden parachutes. But what happens when we refuse to let those pink slips define us? What happens when we transform them into parachutes of our own design? That's the question Kiki Kani's journey answers so powerfully. And it's the question I want to explore with you today. There are three critical insights I've gathered from my conversation with Kiki Kani and the many remarkable women I've interviewed over the years. First, truth telling is a pathway to healing. The journey toward wholeness begins with breaking the silence. Second, personal pain can be transformed into collective power. When we share our stories authentically, we create space for others to recognize they're not alone. And third, intentional community built through shared experiences is the most powerful antidote to isolation. Let me illustrate these principles through some powerful examples I've encountered. Letitia Clark founded the Pink Parachute Diaries with a vision that was both simple and revolutionary: to amplify Black women's voices and create a platform where authentic stories could be shared without censorship. What drove her was witnessing a pattern that many have seen but few have named: talented Black women receiving pink slips while mediocre men floated away on golden parachutes. The injustice wasn't just in the outcomes, but in the silence surrounding them. So Letitia built something remarkable: a platform dedicated to breaking this silence by documenting and sharing journeys of resilience, authenticity, and perseverance. The impact has been profound. The podcast has fostered connection, healing, and hope by creating a community where Black women's achievements are celebrated and their challenges acknowledged. One listener wrote to Letitia saying, "For the first time, I feel seen. Your platform has validated my experiences and helped me find my voice." Before this community existed, Black women professionals were suffering in isolation, believing their struggles were uniquely theirs with no community to validate their experiences. This silence wasn't just uncomfortable, it was creating a prison of isolation. The podcast has become a rallying cry for those who've been handed pink slips instead of golden parachutes and decided to fly anyway. By breaking the silence around shared experiences, the platform has transformed individual pain into collective power and created pathways for healing. This mirrors exactly what Kiki-khani has accomplished with her writing, creating a space where silence is broken and healing becomes possible. Then there's Sharita Flores, who transformed her experience of workplace isolation into a movement for truth telling and community building among Black professionals. Sharita faced the double burden of processing trauma while navigating workplaces where vulnerability was often mistaken for weakness. But rather than continuing to suffer in silence, she embraced vulnerability as strength and began creating intentional spaces for truth telling among Black professionals. Like many Black professionals, Sharita discovered that truth telling comes with unique risks in environments where our emotions are policed with such vigilance that angry Black woman has become shorthand for any display of justified emotion. Yet, through her courage to speak openly about her experiences, Sharita has inspired others to break their silence and find healing in community. Her work has highlighted how sharing stories and connecting with others can turn individual wounds into collective wisdom and create pathways for healing. As Maya Angelou wisely said, there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. Kiki-khani and women like Sharita have discovered the liberation that comes when those stories are finally given voice. A third powerful example comes from Jacqueline M., who walked away from a toxic corporate environment to create a healing centered enterprise that serves her community while honoring her well being. Many Black professionals face pressure to conform to traditional definitions of success that often come at the cost of their well being and authentic self expression. Jacqueline's decision sparked a movement of Black professionals reclaiming their right to success that doesn't require self sacrifice or silence. By challenging conventional narratives of success, her story has empowered others to pursue paths that honor both their ambitions and their need for healing and wholeness, just as Kiki-khani has done through her writing. These stories illustrate a profound truth that Audre Lorde captured when she wrote, "Your silence will not protect you." In fact, our silence often becomes the very thing that isolates us, that keeps us trapped in cycles of pain and disconnection. For Black women, especially, vulnerability often comes with unique risks in workplaces where our emotions are policed, and one wrong move can reinforce stereotypes we've spent careers trying to dismantle. Yet, as we've seen time and again, silence serves no one, especially not ourselves. When we share our stories authentically, we create space for others to recognize they're not alone. This connection is particularly vital for Black professionals who often suffer in isolation, believing their struggles are uniquely theirs with no community to validate their experiences. The most powerful antidote to isolation is community. By creating platforms where authentic stories can be shared without censorship, we foster connection, healing, and hope, a community where our achievements are celebrated and our challenges acknowledged. This is the revolutionary power of voice that Kiki-khani has embraced through her writing. It's the power that transforms individual pain into collective healing, that turns personal struggles into bridges for others. So, what does this mean for you? How can you harness this revolutionary power in your own life? I want to offer three actionable steps inspired by my conversation with Kiki-khani and the remarkable women whose stories I've had the privilege to document. First, see something, say something, challenge the culture of silence around abuse and injustice, whether in your personal life or professional spaces. Your voice matters. And speaking truth to power is the first step toward transformation. Second, create intentional community. Seek out or build spaces where authentic stories can be shared without censorship, fostering connection and healing. Remember that you are never alone in your experiences, and finding others who understand can be profoundly healing. And third, transform your pain into purpose. Consider how your own challenges and triumphs might serve as a bridge for others seeking healing and wholeness. As Kiki Kani has demonstrated through her writing, our stories can become powerful tools for change when we share them with intention and courage. As we stand at this crossroads of silence and voice, I challenge you to consider: what story are you not telling? What truth are you holding back that might be someone else's liberation? Your voice, yes, yours, could be the exact medicine someone else desperately needs. The revolution begins with a whisper, with one person brave enough to say, "This happened to me too." It grows with each story shared, each bridge built between isolated islands of pain. And it culminates in a chorus so powerful that systems of oppression cannot help but tremble in its wake. I leave you with this: silence is not neutral. It is a choice with consequences that extend far beyond our individual lives. When you break your silence, you're not just changing your own story, you're creating the possibility for countless others to rewrite theirs. The world doesn't need your silence, it needs your voice in all its raw, imperfect glory. Speak your truth. Someone is waiting to hear exactly what you have to say.